Welcome to the Education and Empowerment Podcast. In this show, our hosts explore success and advancement through education by interviewing today's top leaders in the fields of education, business, and technology in order to provide insight into what it really takes to succeed. This show is brought to you by ForStay, a SaaS-enabled online booking marketplace for student and intern housing. ForStay provides turnkey, all-in-one, cloud-based accommodation software solutions for colleges, universities, and organizations. Learn more at offcampus.forstay.com and landlords.forstay.com. All right, let's get into the show.
You are tuned to the Education and Empowerment Podcast. This is your host, Bakhtiyor Isoev, and in today's episode, I will be interviewing Ryan Akers. Ryan Akers is the Student Employment Coordinator and Career Counselor at the California Lutheran University. In this role, Ryan helps lifelong learners and students with their specialized career concerns related to advancing their professional goals, both during their time in college and afterwards when they return as alumni. Ryan's background includes establishing relationships with community service and nonprofit partnerships related to employment creation for students in college. Passionate about student success outside of classroom, Ryan has worked with a team at Los Angeles Community College District to develop and support the Los Angeles College Promise and Mayor of Los Angeles, Erick Garcetti's Mayor Young Ambassador Program. These programs provide 2 years of free tuition to thousands of students and connected them to an international community which helped them make aware of the global opportunities that guided them into their professional careers. Ryan aims to continue his work in helping provide students career-related opportunities for success through utilizing partnerships that establish gainful employment and relevant experience to those who need it. In this episode, Ryan and I will be exploring the topic of student success through career development. So you'll hear a lot of tactics and strategies and initiatives that positively impact student success through an angle of career exploration and development. Without further ado, let's dive into this episode. Hello and welcome to the Education and Empowerment Podcast. This is your host, Bakhtiyor Isoev, and today I'm joined by Ryan Akers, a Student Employment Coordinator and Career Counselor at the California Lutheran University.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I've really been listening to your podcast lately now, and I'm excited to be one of the people to be invited on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. We truly appreciate it. And the topic is really interesting, and it's been, on our minds as we are talking to, various experts. We want to explore, what it takes to succeed and what it takes to prepare students for success. And the angle that we're going to discover today is really important. So, without further ado, I want to get started. And I was hoping that you could share some light into how you got started in the field and, what were your motivations starting out and what do you currently do in your role?
Yeah, so I always want to start this off by doing some of my identity factors. I am a first-gen low-income student. So I was a student who was on financial aid. I was the first in my family ever to go to college. And really, initially, I was unsure what I wanted to do. That's what kind of led me into the community college route. I knew I wanted to work with people. I knew I was very friendly and outgoing, but I wasn't sure where I could take this journey. Really, this is where I spent a lot of my time exploring majors, exploring opportunities. And I finally stuck on psychology because that was very similar to what I saw myself being in the future. So I ended up graduating with my undergrad degree in psychology. But during my time at that university, I worked as a crisis and suicide prevention helper. So I worked a lot with mental health, but specifically with college students because that was our population we were working with. And then this is where I started to look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the holistic needs of a student. And looked at all these difficulties that these students were facing. And it was such a big difference between bad grades to I can't afford food or I can't even afford my tuition. So this is what really motivated me to decide to go into a master's degree in counseling, but with an emphasis in college and student personnel. Because really I found my niche in my group that I wanted to serve. And this is where I think that it was my calling. I know that I needed to be the person to help them because they wanted somebody to be out there to be that leader, to guide them through this path. So really that's what ended up happening. And as I worked my way through my master's degree program, I worked at a variety of institutions in both administrative roles, counseling roles, and just like general support and mentorship opportunities. So now currently with this opportunity, I do everything from student employment on campus to community partnerships for employment opportunities, working with nonprofits, anything from getting grant money for mentorship programs, things like that. And just really kind of guiding both our students and alumni down their career path as they go through this event.
Awesome, awesome. This is really good. And as you're looking at your career and what you accomplished so far, what does student success mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, student success is something that can be seen from a variety of perspectives. I always think being somebody as both a student, an administrator, and a counselor, there is a variety of ways you want to kind of observe this background and what success means. So, as a student, success means that you're confident in yourself, your choices, and you're very proud of what you're achieving while you're obtaining a degree. As an administrator, student success is that we acknowledge the growth and interest in learning, and we admire that passion in our students and we see how much it benefits their lives. You know, administrators facilitate aspects of higher ed and policy and law, and they have a lot of the sway in achieving programs that can encourage student success. And then when you really think about it as a career counselor, student success extends far beyond the university and the degree. They go into like, what have you earned? What have you achieved? Like, what is the satisfaction you got from your professional career? And this accomplishment and satisfaction is really what's going to matter the most because that's their chosen path. That's what they planned on. So student success doesn't even have to end once you obtain your degree. It's the success beyond the classroom that we really talk about.
Awesome, awesome. I think you made a great point. And when you look at student success outside of class, I mean, obviously, this is in your role. You're doing one part of it, which is through career development. Can you name a couple other dimensions of student success outside of classroom that you find important to have for the holistic development of a student?
Yeah. You want to always think about a sense of belonging. You always think a student doesn't just come, like we think of like commuter students oftentimes that are, we drive to school, we come home, we don't spend any time on the campus. And we often think about like, well, who are our students? Like the non-traditional students are coming more and more apparent than ever before. It's not the typical 18 to 22 young individual going to college. We have such a wide variety, students who are undocumented, international, refugees, students who like older generations, things we've even seen students at like 15 or 16 coming into higher education. So there is a lot of different capacities, but with that, you have to be able to meet these individuals at where they're at. And I think oftentimes student success has to find out like what's going to make the student feel successful. Sometimes like it could be like peer involvement. It could be leadership activities. Oftentimes one of our biggest things that we see is on-campus employment really motivates student success because they're actually linking their education to their career path and they see like beyond what just learning through a textbook or taking exams and papers. They're really putting it to like pen to paper. We're taking this knowledge and we're using it every day of our lives. So I want to say like student success is actually like understanding how you're doing this successfully and then going out and implementing it as a professional.
Awesome, awesome. You just reminded me, back 15, 16 years ago when I was in college, I remember taking Spanish class and, management class. And for me coming, outside the United States, it was very, very enlightening to see students who were, way older than you and you would have conversations as if you're having a conversation with your parents, right? That they would be at different ages. And you briefly touched on this, which makes me curious, what challenges do you see in advising or in student success outside of classroom work when it comes to all the different ages and needs and people coming from different background and having different needs?
Yeah, I mean, again, there is a wide variety of challenges that come with higher ed, but I think initially we always got to think like financial challenges. That's always going to be my first that I go to because beyond just buying books and paying for your courses, we've seen lately with like COVID, I've had students say like I couldn't afford internet and I only did in-person classes and now they had to go buy internet and they couldn't afford it.
Right.
And things like that. And like a lot of this comes with like being able to afford these opportunities. And this even goes back to like some opportunities like internships, like companies actually will make you pay to do an internship. I mean, it's not very common, but it is something that we've seen, or even to take part in certain events actually has a cost to it. So
Right.
not every student can do, a study abroad program. And those create great knowledge and like diversity and equity and understanding, global, challenges, especially with career development. But that's something that not everyone's going to take part in. So I think these are always present in areas that will hinder student success. Because when we think about, like, I always bring back Maslow's hierarchy of need, like, I can't learn if I'm hungry. I can't, do all of these other things if I can't even get to my classroom because I'm not emotionally there. Now more than ever, we're seeing these challenges with emotional well-being and student support, that we need to understand these needs to be able to combat that, to make these challenges diminish. And that's going to be the top priority in education. But it's also these students don't have the reassurance that they may not feel that they are successful or qualified. And that goes into my other challenge of, like, me being a first gen student, I faced imposter syndrome. I never felt like I was that person that was going to be a professional and was going to fit in, because, like, I didn't even know what that lifestyle looked like. I was always just, most of the people I grew up around with didn't go to college. They never really knew that lifestyle. So it kind of comes to mind, like, I always doubted my own abilities. And even when I was successful, I never really thought I was doing good. Like, I always had that, like, concern, like, well, I'm just kind of making that, like, the cut. I'm just being there. And I was trying to identify what success meant as a first generation college student. And I think it's really, you need to understand, like, admiration and pride in what you're doing. And when you don't have that, it really does make student success a challenge.
You
Uh,
mentioned something very interesting there, with the, theory of the Maslow needs. One of the reasons why we started Force Day, and when we started Force Day, a lot of what we noticed with students and young professionals is the exact fact that, unless my housing, which is kind of the basic needs, the first levels of the Maslow's, the theory of, Maslow's hierarchy, is, if my housing is not taken care of, if I'm not secure, how am I supposed to go and learn and take advantage of these opportunities? And that's the exact same kind of reason why we started Force Days, to be able to focus on housing and accommodation for students, so that they are able to focus their time on studying and getting the great experience. And in our work, we are now connecting with so many different universities and colleges, and helping them transform the on and off campus housing. And it really came to me that California Lutheran University is our future partner as well. And I wanted our audience to give them a chance to get to know your work better, and what California Lutheran University has to offer as it comes to student success outside of classroom. And I think you touched a little bit about affordability. Can you walk us through what's it like to be a student, and what does California Lutheran University offer when it comes to the student success work?
Yeah, so the great thing about California Lutheran University is very small classroom sizes. That means you have a much dedicated staff to meet your needs, and you have a quicker response time to get that support. So you're really in that moment, you're able to achieve what you want and you're not delayed. Again, with having smaller class sizes as a student, you connect with your peers better, you connect with your professors better, and you're able to connect with your community a lot better. That's one of the best things about Cal Lutheran, is our community. It's very small, but it's almost that small town feel where you can walk across the university and everyone's going to know you, you're going to know everybody, and everyone's going to be very friendly. So that is very much a positive. What we do specifically in career success for students is that we oversee over 800 on-campus jobs for them. So there's always opportunities in a variety of majors there. Anything from, like, research to lab work to PR and public relations. We actually have the Rams football team on our campus for a training camp, and they hire our students in our sports management fields, things like that. So they're getting hands-on experience with real-life professionals at their university. And it's not that they have to leave and find and mentor and shadow. These people are coming to them to encourage them to do these things. So that's something we're really, really proud about, is that commitment from our staff and our faculty to encourage our students to do more, versus thinking of them as just passing a course. We often see professors long after the student are gone still emailing them and saying, how's your job going? How's this going? I'm so excited to see you're on LinkedIn and you're doing these great things. Like, we don't always see that from other universities, and it's not their fault, because they have a much bigger population. When you have a big population, it's a lot harder to do that individual care. But that's what's great about Cal Lutheran. And then really for us in the Career Center, is we have the power to encourage them very well to start looking for jobs. So we often think as a student employment coordinator, my job is to do anything from career exploration to career professionalism and training in the workplace to leadership training for supervisors, and then building contracts so our students can go work at name brand companies like Big Brothers Big Sisters, many mansions, area housing authorities, and they're getting really good experience, but they're not having to fight for these opportunities. They're getting because it's federal work study funding and they have a little bit more chances, we can get them opportunities early on. Also, we do mentorship programs that are completely free, and we do job placement that are grant funded. So Bank of America funds one of our programs for a cause, where we actually will match a student to an employer and they will get a stipend to work there, and they don't have to submit a resume. So any student can get an internship this way, and this is automatic career experience that they can then put on their resume, and they're getting paid for that time. So that's like definitely these like detailed programs that are going to meet the student, because that's something that we always want to see is like we want to encourage them to participate. And the idea is that like prepare them. And the earlier you can prepare them and the better you can prepare them for the workplace, the more satisfied they're going to be with their career choice, their degree choice, and where they end up actually being successful for.
Awesome. I think you just mentioned something very interesting, and I've been seeing that practice a lot these days is the partnerships with different, public-private, institutions. Can you elaborate a little bit more about, the success that you're experiencing with the Bank of America partnership, and perhaps, give us advice on how this type of practices could be improved and implemented in other higher education institutions of similar size or format?
Yeah. So initially, one of the most successful implications and examples we've done for programming is our career services is free for life. This includes academic advising, career exploration, all of our workshops, all of our job databases at no additional cost. What we often see with this is it builds a value in our community, again, even after you leave, and you think of like generational commitment to our university. We want to think about if a student is, especially our international students who come across, the world, they may not have a chance to come back to us. So we want to make sure that we can meet them wherever they are in their career path. So that has been something that has been greatly appreciated by not only our organization, but other universities had admired that about us. So that's one of the big things. Going into like the Bank of America program, the For a Cause program, that was created by Cindy Lewis, my director. She has done this for the last 10 years or more. She does this every year, and she gets more money every year, and she gets more students in it. So the idea is you want to look for a grant donor who is all about career development. There's tons and tons of donors out there looking for opportunities. And what you do is you get this money, and then you use your network, you use your community of who's around you. And especially being a career center, we have those alumni connections, people who we helped get a great profession, who want to give back to our students now. So really successful programming leads to having a good alumni relationship and linking them with your current students. So really it's all of these things that are going to kind of go into play. And like it always goes back to, you don't leave your student after they graduate. We are all lifelong learners, as we often talk about. So
Sure.
we need to kind of teach that as they go on. And then when they come back to us, utilize their knowledge, because industries are changing so fast nowadays. We're not going to always be the one expert to know every industry. We need to rely on these people who are graduating and going into these workforces to tell us what we need to be teaching our future students. So really linking their knowledge with our training is going to be the best for our students.
It's interesting you mentioned that, and I think what really stands out is the fact that the industry is changing so fast, and young people should stay abreast with the current and future demands of the workforce, and how that is going to impact what type of work you and I will be doing in the field of student success. I'm hoping that you maybe could give us a little bit more understanding of how perhaps the pandemic impacted and affected institutions like yours, and what type of work do you think we need to be doing post-pandemic to still be competitive and to still be able to offer the services to students?
Yeah. So for career development, there is really a timeline for success. As you come in as a new student, you typically are just focused on your classes. But we've seen from employers, they want to usually see like 2 internship experiences before you graduate, one directly related to your major, and they want to see some sense of commitment to careers. Early on, we want to show that we can be reliable. We want to show that we're committed, and working a job for a year or so. And internships are perfect because they are part-time. They're not expected to hold you to these values. But what has happened is with the pandemic and these things have changed, it has shifted this availability on this timeline. Certain individuals who are in specialized programs, anything pre-med, occupational physical therapy, things like that, and then some of the science, STEM related fields too, they've seen like a dip. But at the same time, some opportunities have excelled, So it's really going to be dependent on your major, dependent on what your career aspects are after you graduate. That has shifted a lot. But what has been good about COVID and the changes in the pandemic is we actually have gotten a wider array of audiences attending our events, because a lot of our alumni who have graduated have now come back to seek either a career change, because this has provided them the opportunities that they never had before. People were out of work, so a lot of them decided, I wanted to do something that I've been waiting for. And that's where we were here to help. So a lot of what we got is a returning alumni. And remember, I always bring back that career service is free for life, because that's what won us back that attention, is all these individuals who are a little older, non-traditional college students came back needing support, wanting to go get a graduate degree or wanting to go find a new career path. And that's when we came in to really, really help them. That's where career services really shined during the pandemic, is, finding them opportunities, reassuring their faith in their professionalism. A lot of people lost kind of like comfort and confidence in themselves. And they were, 10, 20-year senior executives, people high level positions, really just not having a lot of faith. So what we were able to do is we did a lot of like positive motivation, a lot of reminders. We would do like monthly drop-in meetings for specific topics regarding COVID, losing a job with COVID, how to apply in COVID, what does remote work look like in COVID? We were giving specialized trainings to these people because that's what they needed. They weren't going to, we don't want to do the general resume review when you have, 50 people coming to you that they just lost their jobs. That's not going to be the important aspect right now. So we did have to change our landscape to meet our audience, really is what it is. But with that, we still had to not lose track of our students. We needed to find internship opportunities. We needed to encourage them to shadow professionals, be a part of clubs and organizations. So it was having a balance of like meeting them, but not meeting them face to face. Something that we do really well at Career Services is we almost act like a recruiter. Like we get really good level jobs, either like a first year freshman or a senior graduate student in an MFT program or MBA program or any of these other areas. But the idea is you get them thinking. We often talk about like that first initial job we send out to that freshman student. It really looks good. It might be a name brand company like Disney, Sony, something like that. They may not be ready for that job right away, but now they're thinking about it. Now their mind's on, oh, well, I need to get a resume because I don't even know how to apply. Or I don't even know what a resume looks like. Where do I start? And then we start that initial thought process of like, what will be my career? What do I see myself doing? And that can initially start just by sending a job opportunity. And now with COVID, students are looking. So if you give them the right opportunity, they are ready to jump on it. And that's going to typically kind of streamline this process of like what we'd want from them. And now more than ever, remote work is exciting for some people. Yeah. I often think about we can apply anywhere across the world now and have a job. That is really unique to the times we are living in. People who have never had a chance to apply for a company in like tech or like computer science, like a lot of these are like specialized in certain areas and they're focused in these key like hub cities. Now we can go apply to them. If I'm in the middle of America, nowhere near a coding company, I can then go apply to go be a computer science engineer. And that's the cool part about what COVID has created. There is more remote activity than there ever was before. And that means there's big booms into certain industries as well. Tech is growing every day now. Medical fields, STEM fields, they're outrageous right now. And that's a positive. We love to see that. These, especially with the pandemic, STEM has grown. Like people who are interested in actually pursuing a STEM degree has like accelerated drastically because of what we've seen in the world today. So there is definitely some good that has come with this, with all of the bad that has also come with this.
And there's certainly, if you think about positive things will happen. So looking at the kind of the needs of the younger audience and our listeners, I was hoping that you could help us understand a little bit more. Where does career development start? Is it the, first year? I mean, you mentioned in this conversation that, the young people coming in the, freshman year getting these internships, but, is it really then, or is it, does it start before you even get into college?
I used to work for high school recruitment and outreach when I was earlier on in my undergrad. And a lot of that starts early. Where do you want to go? What's going to be unique at this school versus that school? Like, why should I go to a community college versus a 4-year or private? All of these things happen early, like, high school area. But the idea is you want to know what you would get out of this. As a student who had no clue what I wanted, I knew I was going to go to a community college, A, because of the affordability, B, because I was unsure and I wasn't going to spend money on courses that I wasn't sure I wanted to be in, and C, it was more realistic for me. I wasn't the best achieving student early on in high school. I didn't have the best grades, so I didn't have the availability to go somewhere like, a highly prestigious school. But what, my opportunity was is I knew that I could get there through a pathway. And I'm big on pathways because that's how you can kind of keep track of where you need to go. Once you know where you're going to go, then you're going to figure out what you're going to do. Once you know what you're going to do, you're going to know how to do better at it. And it's a process. So it does start very early on, but the seriousness of it kind of kicks in college level. And that's going to shift depending on who you are, what struggles you face. For me, I was late to the game. I think I might have got my first internship like my first senior year of like my undergrad program. And I actually took a little bit longer. I took 8 years to do a 6-year degree, but that was beneficial for me because of my own background. It's, everybody has their own pathways, but I was able to delay some of my courses so I was not as stressed, but I was able to take on more clubs and organization. I was able to work in a couple more opportunities, and I wasn't so consumed with my grades and getting my degree that I pushed it a little bit more. And once I came to terms that I was going to delay my degree and I was okay with that, I had much more availability and opportunities around me. But that doesn't work for everybody. Some people really are hyper focused, and I've seen great students do the degree in 4 years, get the 2 jobs, and do everything they're supposed to. But that's not every student, and that's what we really want to highlight, is that we want to highlight the students that need to take a little bit more time and could really benefit from something like that. So if you are already overwhelmed just with your education, then stacking career related topics on you is going to overwhelm you, and you might actually push you away from your field. I have seen students apply for a job in their major, not get accepted, and feel like they chose the wrong major, but they just weren't prepared. They weren't at that level to be there to really, stand out and be that competitive applicant. So we often think about, some of the struggle student faces is like, I'm going to apply for the name brand company, and then when I don't get it, I'm upset. And then we remind them, well, no, your first internship is going to teach you the skills that you need, and you're going to learn from this opportunity. So when you apply the second time, you are that person they're looking for. So another issue is just finding something that benefits you, that's transferable and relevant, but isn't always name brand. Especially with COVID, you can't always pick and choose who you want to work with right now. It's a little bit difficult. So you want to just find something that's transferable. And as you go into these like second or third internships or a full-time job, you have the tools to make you stand out.
That's great. I was talking to my nephew the other day, and he was asking me the same exact questions. And, I pretty much answered the same way you did. So glad to be hearing, from you as an expert in the field that, we're on the same page on that note. There are a couple of things that really stand out here. And I think one of them is the fact that the landscape is changing, and you certainly mentioned a few good examples like pathways and being okay with doing remote internships and stuff. Looking at the future, what subjects or what fields or what majors, I guess, do you see prevailing most, and what could young people do today more proactively to prepare for those?
Every industry is changing. We've seen stuff that's boomed this time and things that have failed. But, like anything, we resurface. We're going to balance out. Tech is always going to be popular. Biopharmaceuticals, bioengineering is a big up and coming right now. We always think those are going to be the big name positions that people love. But for me in higher ed, I chose a degree in counseling and student personnel. I can travel the world with my degree. I can go anywhere and work at any university. And that's something that I appreciate in my degree, is that transferableness, that I have reassurance. There will always be colleges, there will always be universities. So you want to know your industry. Don't be scared if your industry is not doing the best now. We look at sports, we look at film and TV. they're gonna come back. They've always come back. I always think we think about flying. Everybody was scared of flying. They thought the airlines were gonna go out of business. We're always gonna fly. There's always gonna be opportunity. It might not be good now, but we're gonna go back sometime. So know your industry trends. It's not gonna say like one trend or one major is gonna be the other, but know your major, know your background, know what it is to be a specialist, and know what it is to train yourself. And I think as long as you know what like the background consists of, and you actually know your future, you're going to be a lot more satisfied with what you're doing. Oftentimes I always think of like pre-med students or somebody like pre-law who are like, I know I want to be a lawyer, but I haven't explored the pre-med route, or I didn't think I was going to take this many STEM courses, or this is getting really overwhelming. And that this is one of those things that we often regret. Like, do your research and understand what you want, because that's when we don't want to jump in anything besides the cost of paying for extra classes. Just your confidence in your degree and really where you see yourself going is going to be more impactful than anything.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's certainly great. And there are a couple of things that I think would be very interesting to hear for, professionals like yourself. And if you're looking at the industry of student affairs and career services and student engagement and student life, what do you see being the biggest area of opportunity right now for professionals like yourself and like myself when it comes to the student success work and the transformation?
I think as a professional, you want to embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion more than ever now. These factors have always been important, but now more than ever, there's actually great opportunities to build centers and offices and parts of the university that really, really meet this need and this demand. So I think as anybody in higher ed, you want to be affiliated with diversity. Maybe like as a white male myself, I've had to like definitely take time to learn about like, what my international students experience, both as coming here and when they go home, or what they experience before they come here. We often think we have a lot of similarities with our students, but we do have a lot of differences that we need to address. And I think it's not the students' job to make us understand them. It's our job to understand them. And we need to take the time, if we really care about our students and our university, that we're going to learn who they are. And that's only part of the idea, is like you want to know who they are so you can advise them better. Once like we often think about like, I see sometimes with parents, choosing a child's career for them, and they have nothing to want to do with that. And you have to remind them, like, balancing that cultural difference of like, this is like, they have to follow their elders' rules, but you want to remind them of that like independence, that they're here as their own person and that they need to choose the path for them. And even becoming like a therapist at times to, console them or work with them, or like, as they kind of like, how would I even tell my parents? How would I even talk about this? Where do I even begin? And that's something that comes out all the time. We as like career counselors, we're counselors also. We do have students that come in here really upset, really sad, scared, know how to be a person and be human, not just, well, I want to do your resume and I want to get you a cover letter, I want to get you a job. It's much, much more than that. You need to understand. I always go back to the holistic needs of the student. I'm not the healthcare professional, but if you're not feeling good, I'm going to get you the support. If you're having bad emotional well-being, I'm going to get you to our counseling offices. I don't care what it is. I need to be better prepared to help you regardless of what my original title is.
This is really fascinating. And as we wrap up this episode, I was hoping that you could leave us with a quote on student success, or any piece of wisdom for either our young listeners or for other professionals like yourselves.
Yeah. So for the students, expect to make mistakes. Don't let your mistakes speak to who you are as a person. You are going to make a mistake, and you're going to learn from that. You need to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You need to be okay with being stressed and being challenged as you're more responsibility. That's what's going to prepare you to excel as a professional in your career after you graduate, is when you've been challenged and you've been pushed, and you, instead of falling down, you got back up and you were better from it. For administrators moving forward, don't lose faith in your communities. Don't lose faith in your career. What you do matters every single day of your life. You may not see it in that moment, but it's what happens after the student leaves the room that is really the most important issue in all of this. If they left feeling fulfilled and thinking about something, you did a great job. And you don't need to worry, oh, they didn't apply on time, or they didn't do like they were supposed to. They left with that little spark. And that spark is more important than anything at all, because that's going to lead to the flame that's going to really push them. So I always say that, like, You may have off days, you may feel like you have an appointment that didn't go well. You know what, follow up with them, do what you can, but don't beat yourself up over it. We are going to keep going and we're going to keep pushing our students, and that's what's going to make you a great professional.
Awesome. Awesome. You just reminded me, the importance of empowering. And of course, as professionals working in the field, it is very important that, we have a support system and we share best practices. I've personally been, very positively impacted by a book that was given to me actually by the host family, which supported me while I was studying, myself back in the days. And the book was about 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And I think the two great pieces that are very relevant to the conversation we're having is, one of the habits and one of the kind of the key insights that he's giving in the book is about the listen first to understand before like being understood. So, it is very wise for both professionals and young people is to take a stand and take a step back and to really understand what's going on. And I think the second piece there is the fact of begin to think with end of the mind, and especially relevant right now because as this pandemic and big crisis has happened, you actually begin to think with the end of the mind. Okay, where am I headed? How much time do I have left? So time of an essence, and obviously resources, and taking advantage of what's available to you. Ryan, this has been a very interesting conversation. I thank you for your time, and for those people who want to connect with you, what's the best way to find you?
Follow me on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect with new professionals. I'm always willing to help wherever I can. And I just want to leave this last bit of note. Make sure you all advocate for yourself. We're all leaders in our own profession, our own fields. Take the time to build a presence of your own, because you'd be surprised. You might end up on a podcast like this in the not so long future. So definitely take the charge. Follow me on LinkedIn. Reach out if you can, and learn to be the professional you want to be.
Awesome. Thanks for the education and empowerment and motivation and insights that you provided for our listeners out there. Thank you so much, Ryan. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate your time. Your stories and best practices that you brought are certainly of great value, and I hope that our listeners will find them so. For our listeners out there, make sure you subscribe to Education and Empowerment Podcast on podcast.forstay.com so you never miss an episode. Once again, this episode and podcast was sponsored by Forstay, student online marketplace. And if you're curious about what Forstay does, check it out on podcast.forstay.com. And until our next show, thank you so much.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Education and Empowerment Podcast. This show is brought to you by Forstay, a SaaS-enabled online booking marketplace for student and intern housing. Forstay provides turnkey, all-in-one, cloud-based accommodation software solutions for colleges, universities, and organizations. Learn more at offcampus.forstay.com and landlords.forstay.com.